If the world of payments, transaction, and any type of value exchange is to be implemented on a system to execute these instantaneously, which ledger will that be? Currently, the payment works on a traditional infrastructure which is bleeding now. A new infrastructure is being built and it is on a majority of global agendas. As we saw in yesterday's video, from G20 to OECD, everywhere it is there. It's the crypto assets and how you can use it. Now, understanding the process of providing liquidity and settlements through digital assets are being piloted by central banks around the globe. Why? Because they are going to use it. It is being called the digital asset for payment, and the vision in this one leads to replacement of the entire Nostro-Vostro system and becoming the universal bridge. So that is where the recent tweet from David Schwartz kind of highlights. David Schwartz clearly highlights that it will be the payment asset and the bridge asset. Now, when it is on a universal ledger, which can be the ILP, settlements will be happening through the validators, which central banks can choose, and it will be in real time. So that component is the key here. You are not actually directly uploading them to the previous XRP platform, which now is the on-demand liquidity. So they are using, say, XCurrent. Then that messaging platform can actually source liquidity if they want through the interledger protocol. Now here, it shows with XRP ledger, you can transfer BTC, ETH, and all other different, non-scalable assets, which need scalability when the network gets congested, through XRP ledger, because it is the universal bridge. It is there to exchange any type of value. And as a recent news highlights, the crypto standard is changing and the metrics will be based on liquidity in that network. Now, yes, we will go through all the different information, news, updates, and necessary items to keep the scientific investor family informed and updated. Welcome to the Scientific Investor channel, where we discuss crypto and science behind investing regularly. When people state, in order to the price to rise, there need to be a lot of liquidity, and for that, there should be a lot of money. But people who state this actually forgets things like this happens, right? Last time it was just highlighted that it was like $1 trillion of bailout in the great financial crisis of 2008, but 16 trillion of bailouts were underreported. That means the Fed, that's the one central bank. Now, yes, that's the central bank of United States, so that's huge. Other countries can't actually do like this, but at least they can do up to their limits, right? So they can print out as much as they want from thin air. If they want to implement a new system, they can do whatever they want. Say, this was just to bail out banks. So if they are going to install a new infrastructure for them, that means which give a bit more control to them, and it reduces their cost. It increases their efficiency. Say, this is just an example showing that Saudi Arabia's monetary authority is saving $400 billion a year just through using XCurrent. So think, when they are saving this and they are entering into the crisis mode, they need more savings. So they will be automatically going into the on-demand liquidity so that they will be saving more. So this is also a central authority for payments of one country, right? In the same aspect, as the economy is getting crushed, there is no other chance this is going to happen for sure. And remember, at that time, this is happening in one side, meaning in grayscale investments, ETH is now being traded over to $1,000. So that is like, war. Previously, the all-time high for ETH was like 1,400. So that means money is actually shifting its direction. As we talked in last couple of videos, the investment side is actually popping out. Institutional investors are actually coming in, buying this. So when we actually see statement like this, for them, Ripple as a company, they are proposing this as a payment asset, as a bridge asset. But in both of that utility perspective, you have the word asset. right? So those who are investors see these utility and value in that particular asset, and for sure they will be coming in. But the only thing which is pushing them back is clarity of regulations. Proper regulation from United States is necessary for this. Even UK and other countries, like yesterday we heard directly from Brad, right? UK, Singapore and others have already stated that this is a utility token, it's not a security. So that clarity, once it comes out from the Fed or the SEC, those who are related to US, then the pumping will be like this, because ETH was previously announced along with BTC, and you know that BTC is still way below its all-time highs. Now, yes, XRP is way below its all-time highs. I agree that. But once this announcement comes out, compared to BTC, ETH has that utility. While comparing it to BTC, it is scalable and it is energy efficient, but nowhere near XRP, right? So once there is an announcement related to XRP, it will be something like this, mooning even way above the all-time highs and then catching the wave. Current health crisis is kind of pushing the entire central banks towards this, right? This pandemic is accelerating the development of central bank digital currencies, and the way we look at this, current infrastructure is kind of pushing it to the other side, because it has a lot of friction with this. The Nostro refers to an account. Now they actually gives the description, but that is actually happening. And when we actually say, I actually saw one yesterday talking about XRP integrated with banks, and they asked about that, and reply was only about Exim Bank. But don't forget, these are all the others who are involved in the XRP ecosystem, and you can see QLX here at the bottom. That is also a bank. Now, if you're looking at financial institutions, all of them will be recognized as a financial institution. IDT is payment transfers, Mercury FX is there. So if you actually go through different documents, you can actually see more of these partners. This is another document from the Hot Chips conference, and it is also from a Ripple representative. Now, when you look at the sample here of customers, you can actually see QLX here in the total customers, and at the same time, it's also there in the XRP ecosystem, right? So that's kind of combining both. And when they actually want to do this, they will do it in a tick. This is actually a document from Santander OnePay, and when we actually look at that, they are looking at liquidity provisioning on Ripple. Now, how you can use the liquidity like this, outsourcing it from a different provider, outsourcing it through XRP Ledger. So when you state XRP Ledger, that includes XRP, and that is how it becomes the universal bridge, and that is how they can reduce the existing settlements, payment, and all the related fee, cost. And at that particular point, this kind of becomes a concrete foundation to solve the crisis. Now, yes, the crisis won't be solved like that, but the financial crisis which is being pushed with this pandemic needs a huge liquidity solution, and for that they can actually use this trapped cash. This floating, which is happening inside the entire system, can be actually eliminated, and that's why we just saw in yesterday's video they were actually talking about next 18 months to get onto the new infrastructure. Why? Within the new infrastructure, you don't actually need this much reserves first thing, and then you don't have to keep that much balance on your books. When the central bank digital currency is coming out, it is already backed with the central bank reserves, liabilities, assets and all. Then the banks doesn't actually need to hold this much. That is the first thing. And the second thing, think if the central bank itself is allowing common man to open a bank account, that will be kind of directly in race with the commercial banks. So the commercial banks can look at the closing of their business soon if that actually goes into play. So the conflict of interest there can actually push it a little more aside. Say central bank digital currency will be there, and the commercial bank will be facilitating that for the common man. That can be the process which we can eye for next decade. And when we talk about a new infrastructure, you have to actually keep this in mind. Say, for example, when we are already showing you all the different partners using XRP ecosystem, you also need to understand that this ledger has the power to enable this much transaction. Currently, say, for example, Visa can actually power up to 24,000 transactions. At the same time, XRP Ledger can actually process 50,000 transactions per second. Now that is combining, say, online and offline, both the transactions in those area. Keep this in mind, this was back in 2017 it was reported. After that there was a lot of updates in the network, a lot of updates in the ledger. So I hope they have actually refined this to a new level where, say for example, Visa is doing 24,000 transactions, there is MasterCard, Amex, there is a lot of providers who currently facilitates this. So when you are trying to accommodate majority of those payments, you need to process majority of that per second. And as this is nearing to that final execution phase, different countries are actually coming out and pushing the regulations, because they actually understand that once this is going to reach that mountaintop, it will be that tipping point. If you are not ready, the regulations are not set, other countries who have already set this, like Singapore, UK and all, they will just kick these countries from that mountain. And as far as United States is considered, they're actually looking at this as a inevitable thing. It is happening as of now, and they actually want to refine what is happening. So the crisis, health crisis, financial crisis, everything is coming true. And if you look at last time, say in 2008, they printed $16 trillion to bail out. Now the crisis is not over, it's just kind of beginning, and still the printed amount goes currently around 10 trillion. And the stimulus packages are actually going to be rolled out soon, and bailouts for small scale industries, banks and others are actually coming. It's not yet happened, and that once that kicks in, the price or the books of Federal Reserve will be so giant, and if they are to back it up with something else to stay relevant, then they need that central bank digital asset, which will be facilitating as a reserve currency. Because for dollar to stay as a reserve currency, it's kind of challenging in this situation. But for United States to handle that position, they can actually introduce a central bank digital currency, which is in a synthetic form. So do I think dollar is gonna give up the reserve currency status? Yes, I do think in the current form it's gonna give up that status. But do I think United States is gonna give up that? I don't think so. Personally, I think United States will come up with an alternative. So think if China is there with a digital yuan, US already knows this and they are working on that. So if China is saying that we are going to give you this, use our currency as well, so who will use that? Say, will India do that? No, for sure. So there are nations who don't trust China because of their previous doing. Say for example, Sri Lanka, African countries. So for example, at that particular time, if US is actually coming up with this idea of central bank digital currency in a hybrid or synthetic form, which enables the international transaction from government to government in their own fiat to fiat through a bridge currency, which is the central bank digital currency, then it should be possible. This is a tweet from Matt, and in this one, when we actually come down and look at our model 3A, or if you want, you can actually go to Matt's and then check all of these. But here it is actually talking about the central bank digital currency. And when we look at the central bank digital currency at the bottom, model 3C, you can actually see central bank digital currency would not rely on the availability of domestic real-time gross settlement systems. Nevertheless, the platform supporting the exchange would need to operate 24/7. So the new infrastructure is being laid out, and if you read through all of the different propositions or the proposals, you can actually see that the value is being set there. Now, achieving this requires changes across the numerous RTGS operators. Changes must be matching the commercial banks, driving changes in the infrastructure to offer services to clients who demand greater availability of payments. Now, if you have already watched yesterday's video, you directly connected this. The new infrastructure is being laid out. The new infrastructure allows interoperability. It allows richness of data. That was one of the statements which we actually saw in yesterday's video. And if you connect that to this one, you can actually understand that the infrastructure is being changed to match that interoperability from banks to financial payments providers to everyone. But at the top will be the central banks, and above that will be the infrastructure provider. And finally, this one from XRP Yo-Yo. It actually shows like MasterCard is bringing digital payment to garments industry. That is another industry where, a lot of unbanked people are there, and majority is like, they are women. It's, nothing with that, but they are now bringing them into this digital economy. Once that happens, the requirement for payments will be increasing, the transaction will be increasing. So as I told previously, if Visa is processing 24,000, MasterCard would be processing somewhere near to that, and they are competing with each other. And if there is a new infrastructure on which they can compete, at the same time, say it's not only Visa, MasterCard, Amex, there are other providers as well. Now within the new infrastructure, everyone gets the level playing field to compete with each other. Now in this level playing field, what is to be seen is, will the central bank compete with all those other guys like commercial banks, financial payments provider and all? If they are to compete, then yeah, for example, majority will be moving into the central banks, and in a couple of decades, the other area will be wiped out and it will be like a monopoly. So if you're actually choosing a side as an investor, choose that asset which will be staying there for next 5 years, next 10 years, next 20 years, because that is how you actually build the real wealth.